We got this story from Willamette Week. Marchers set fire to at Apple Store and shatter windows across downtown Portland after police killing. The scale of damage tonight recalled the riots last May. Here's what I love about this article.
Yeah.
They say it's a riot last May, but right now they are marchers.
Yeah.
The media is absolutely shielding these people, but you're
that's for sure.
point.
Well, I think I was trying to make the point kind of from the other side, which is it's just as bad to then come out there and label every single person who's out there in a situation where, police start banging up against the front line of protesters. They declare unlawful assembly. Some of those people were out there with good intentions. So if you say BLM terrorists in every single tweet, then basically you're throwing yourself into that trench, the other trench. Yep. And so you need people in the middle who are just trying their best to look at both and say, like, okay, so we use the term protester because it's like same as the Capitol riot. There were certain people there who were caught up in the madness, the Lord of the Flies effects of the chaos. You start getting pepper sprayed. It's pretty hard to make logical decisions. They didn't so using that neutral terminology wasn't good in the short term. I was like, Jorge, you're not going to get as many retweets. But in the long term, people started to pay attention because they're like, oh, these guys are actually here and they're actually trying their best to actually just show fly on the wall what's going on.
How many people are actively, have you heard actively call for the cops to resign or leave?
I mean, that's a good point, though.
Probably
I think,
only me, right?
Yeah.
Because my position is, I understand not everyone out there is a violent terrorist, but there are many violent terrorists. I understand a lot of people go out there and they're peaceful protesters. The problem with the leftist activists is that they espouse a support for what's called diversity of tactics. Have you heard this phrase from from Antifa?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Diversity of tactics basically means that if you're a peaceful protester, you are supposed to defend or at the very least tolerate violent extremists who are burning things down and attacking police. Respect the diversity of tactics. It's an excuse. They have systems where they need bodies.
You're right. They exploit that. That's for sure.
So, so there are regular peaceful protesters who go out there knowing this and then say, but I had good intentions, even though I dressed in all black to shield the extremists. Now, what they say about the police is, if you have, what do they say? If you have 1,300 good cops and 12 of them are bad, then and the 1,300 good cops won't call out the 12 bad cops, then you have 1,312, bad cops. I think it's right, 1312, ACAB. And so the point the left is making is the same. The cops who refuse to speak out and stop the bad cops are just as bad. So I look at that and I'm like, there's no legit solution between two warring ideologies convincing the side is evil. But there is one simple solution. If the people of these neighborhoods won't defend the police, that means the police don't have their support. And if the people and the other people in these communities, be it maybe a smaller percentage, are actively voting against the police, then the police have a very simple answer. Instead of arguing about who's evil and who's not, you leave. You don't got to worry about support. You don't got to worry about the violence, and you don't got to worry about. They asked for it, they get it, and everyone's better off.
So my only point is, you're a commentator, right? So your call for the police to do this or that, that's legitimate. Our role here is to be on the ground and to say what we're seeing.
Right.
And so when you have the entire media whose responsibility is to be on the ground and say what they're seeing, and they're either trying to portray this in this light or this in that light. I got my ass beat by cops in Wauwatosa with a billy club, and I showed the frickin' bruise on my knee, and everyone's like, "Oh, the bootlicker finally!" It's like, no. How many times have I shown, the BLM snack van getting the window smashed in DC by this white shirt cop who just decided to smash a frickin' window? We're not like choosing, oh no, the cops are good, so we're not going to post that one. It's like but that's the way that this should have been covered from the start. And the reason why we're in this situation now is because nobody was paying attention to us because it was two different echo chambers. And after time, maybe some people are, but still, it's very much two different trenches right now.
I should qualify my previous statement. When I said calling for police to resign, obviously the left is doing nothing but that. Yeah. My reasoning is very, very different.
Yeah.
Because they're being sacrificed and disrespected, and the people in the community won't do anything to stand up for themselves. So, clarification.
Yeah, understood.
But so you get that's why I pulled up the Willamette Week thing. Marchers set fire to an Apple store. They torched that place. It was gutted, and they're not marchers. They're, you know what? I think calling the people who did that rioters is being generous.
Yeah.
Because their political motivations.
You think anarchists then?
No, a terrorist.
Austere marchers.
Austere local activists.
While me and Richie were on the ground in Brooklyn Center, I caught a few interesting kind of moments on video where you'll find black locals from Brooklyn Center yelling at white, you could call them protesters or agitators, and tell them, we don't want violence in our neighborhoods. We don't condone this. And them telling them, hey, when that 10 p.m. curfew hits, we all want to go home. Because I think one thing that maybe a lot of folks don't know unless you're on the ground, and I try to put it out much as out there as I can, is what makes this situation for Brooklyn Center Police Department difficult to control this crowd is because right across the street you have all these apartment complexes, so you have kids in these buildings. So that's one thing that we try to put out there, is that a lot of the black locals in Brooklyn Center literally came out and we're telling the white protesters, hey, don't be burning down our city, don't be doing this to our neighborhoods. We literally have kids here. We have to be here till tomorrow. So I think that was an interesting thing that I was kind of able to capture. We wanted to put it out there.
What were the guys' name? They all had the vests.
They were Minnesota Freedom Fighters,
and it was pretty funny to see the Minnesota Freedom Fighters, predominantly black, all go up to the Antifa umbrella gang, which I've been referring to as the umbrella gang because, they're basically like rolling around with their umbrellas completely in formation the whole time. They're bringing like wooden barriers up to the fence and stuff. And the guys are like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, we're out here to protest. It's not to like smash with police. Like, we're trying to get our voice out here. What is your goal? And
then one thing too, Tim, is then the white protesters, the Antifa, will then basically claim that the black Minnesota Freedom Fighters are working with the police and they're getting paid under the table. So it was interesting to just hear that go down in person.
It's because you look at the data, peaceful protests work. It generates press coverage, which generates sympathy and then makes political change. It works. And violent riots do the opposite. Like we saw with the civics poll. After George Floyd's death, net support for Black Lives Matter reached like 27%. Yeah. And then after the riots, it dropped lower than it had been the year before. Because people don't like riots.
I wish people would realize that the best place to peacefully protest is on the internet, on video. In the 60s, it was you got a huge crowd so that hopefully you get some media attention. So people will come with a camera and put you on TV, on ABC News. You don't need that anymore. Now, you make a YouTube video with 70,000 views, you change 20,000 minds, and then political change happens.
Well, I think a good example, though, is Twitter. Yeah. Activists took over Twitter and use it to ban people and destroy the careers of those they oppose. It works.
Peacefully protesting.
Just from an outsider perspective, it could have been even more powerful. Like, let's say when this George Floyd thing happened, for them to say, hey, you know what? Let's get 1 million man march in Washington, D.C. We're going to go up and we're going to demand these bills and we're going to do it peacefully. And, I think that would have been more powerful instead of the riots, because when the riots happened, and then, me and Rich have been on the ground. One thing that we try to do at the Daily Caller, and I think, not much folks did, is after the riots, we would at least spend a couple of days like actually talking to the business owners, and a lot of them say, hey, we supported this movement from like day one, and now we just don't understand why, and you just turn off a lot of America when you go that like I said, I think from an outsider perspective, probably would have been more powerful to say, hey, let's get 1 million people, let's show up in Washington, D.C., let's march peacefully, and let's demand a set of bills. And I think right now too, with Black Lives Matter or Antifa or whoever you want to categorize these groups, is they don't have a list of demands that's like a legit, like, hey, we're going off this, because when you speak to one person says abolish the whole system, then some people say, oh, well, we want some police, we want community police. It's a mixed message.
I don't believe the businesses, to be honest. When you guys have been to Berkeley, I'd imagine, right?
Not yet.
So you go to Oakland, you go to Berkeley, you go to the Bay Area, and all the businesses have these pro-leftist signs in their windows. One of them actually said, I remember it was a Burger King, and it said, this is a family-owned, franchise. Please do not destroy our windows. See, that, they had to say it outright because it was a Burger King. The local brewery just puts whatever leftist trash in their window, hoping that it spares them. So when you get a journalist who comes out, because I've talked to people on the record, off the record. I'll tell you this, on the record, they're like, we're big supporters of the movement. Just we're hoping that they don't destroy our business. You turn the camera off and they're like, I can't stand any of this. What are they doing? I hate it. But they want to say it publicly because they're trying to beg. They're begging extremists. And I'll tell you what happens. This is the product of apathy in politics. The district attorneys who get elected are funded by leftist progressives who will not prosecute their own. So the cops arrest them and they get cut loose, and then they set fire to the police union building. Then local businesses are forced to just bend the knee because they have no justice system left to defend them.
At what point is it a crime for a DA to release a criminal?
I don't think
it is. Like in Los Angeles right now, they just elected George Cascone, and he's been one of the more progressive DAs. And like I was saying, the LA County Sheriff and him are just butting heads on everything. I've actually spoken to a few police officers and LAPD on the record and off the record who tell me, like, hey, some of the people that we arrest, we charge them for rape within like a couple days out on the street, and they'll like commit a murder. So it's just I mean, at one point too, you have to ask is like, at one point is it a crime, because it's like you're putting your own community in danger, and the people that you say that you're protecting, which is always black and brown. We want to protect the black and brown communities. That's who you're actually impacting the most when you do this. Is the black and brown communities.
It's like
these criminals are not getting released in Beverly Hills. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. No, if they get arrested in Beverly Hills, they'll get shipped somewhere else. But you know who seems to have learned to give up because of politics? These DAs. They're like, whatever, man. Nobody actually cares about their community anymore, so I'll tell them what they want to hear and then just do nothing. And then all the chaos happens, like the cops haven't learned yet. They're like, I'm going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, even though nothing's getting resolved. But I guess, hey, when you're getting a paycheck and you got a house, and you got a mortgage payment, I suppose from my perspective, I said this 2-3 years ago, the escalation. I said this, I think, 2 years ago, that we were going to see heavily racialized riots, or riots for racial reasons escalate because of a lot of the critical race theory stuff.
And Tim, I wanted to bring this up too, because I know when we talk about this stuff, it's riots and all that stuff. But I think one thing too we maybe need to look at as a society, and I think maybe the Adam Toledo was not a great example, but something that maybe we could look at as America is, what about the family structure? I think one thing that we're not talking about is a lot of these people who are causing the riots or out there, taking advantage of any civil unrest. What type of family were they raised? Did they have both parents at home? And I think that's another discussion that America needs to start having. I know with the Adam Toledo.
Yeah, but hold on. To address that point, you realize a lot of these Black Lives Matter people are white progressives from middle class families or upper middle class families. I think there was
but just because they're from upper middle class family doesn't mean their dad was in a shitbag.
No, but their dad could be a lazy middle class intellectual. Is that the right?
Yeah.
He could be a
Mommy's
huge
on
Wall
Valium,
Street
so
guy.
ineffectual.
Could be a huge Wall Street guy who made them millions of dollars, and he's rich as heck, but his daddy was never there, and he's still mad about it.
Is a good point, but I want to make sure we're clarifying that it's not necessarily about whether you got mom or dad. It's about, are your parents lazy and apathetic? You could have two parents, and they can just be
like, they won't smack you around when you're
no.
addicted to
I mean, like
antidepressants.
they send you to school, and then when you're begging for help and attention, they put you on drugs.
Yeah.
And then you grow up messed up because you never had any real leadership in your family.
I think we're saying the same
Or is
thing.
he a drunk?
Which
Yeah.
is
I'm
like,
not, but you like smack him around. I'm like, no.
just come on. I mean, I turned out just fine, right? Come on.
I imagine it's easy for a dad to just drink a few beers at night rather than look his kid in the eyes. Unfortunately.
Yeah,
I mean,
we need a dad who's got he's doing kung fu, and his 5-year-old son's doing little kung fu next to him.
Yeah.
There's a video I watched. It was amazing. It was this dude and his nephew, I guess, and he's doing some kind of gymnastics training, and the little kid is imitating him, and then dude who's probably 30 and super ripped does a backflip, and the little kid does a backflip, and the guy lands and looks at this kid. He's like, "What, dude? Kid just did a back," because kids want to learn from you.
Yeah.
So maybe family structure is correct. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
I
think we need to bring that conversation up with American politics, because that's not talked about enough. I think having the two-parent system in the home, I think all these things we need to start talking about.
Did you assume the gender of those parents? Or?
Oh,
It's two parents.
no, sorry about that. But I think I was reading some.
Yeah, mark that time code.
Okay.
Cancel Jorge when you just mark that down.
But I mean, I think, like I said, it's an interesting the thing to look at, because I remember when I was covering the riots in every different city, but specifically in Portland. I that's one thing that I kind of caught myself is when everyone's causing destruction is to say, how many of these people who are out here grew up with just a regular family and have a sense of purpose in life, because many of the people that I talk to, they almost have no sense of purpose, and when this George Floyd thing popped out, they finally felt they were part of a movement and they were making a change. I don't know, that's what I kind of took away from being in Portland.
I think it's their dads. I think it's mostly the dad.
Yeah.
No,
I agree.
So it's not. So a lot of people like to mention whether people have dads or don't. I don't think that's it, because we brushed on this. I think literally, if you don't have a dad, the studies show that there's going to be. Actually, I'm sorry, I should clarify. Actually, the studies have been simplified to just two parents, a two-parent structure. But I think if people don't have a disciplinary parent, and I don't mean by corporal punishment, I mean literally sit down, son, and meditate, or sit down, daughter, and think about what you did, and you need a leadership role and a nurturing role, in my opinion. I think there's probably a lot of these kids. I mean, you look at these Antifa kids. It's like they've never they've never picked up a heavy backpack in their lives. They're so scrawny and frail, but they're angry. They're really angry and purposeless. So I will say, I don't think they actually believe in anything. I really don't.
No, some don't. Like I said, some that I talked to in Portland, they finally felt like this was their calling. They were part of a movement. Like they were gonna make a change.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.